Nathan Cole had seen many strange things in his time as a deep space explorer, but this was a first. Standing in the grand hall of the Scifi High Council, he was completely out of place. The walls were made of smooth, glowing stone, and intricate golden banners hung from the ceiling. Tall, imposing alien figures sat on curved thrones, their piercing violet eyes focused on him. But Nathan's attention was locked onto the one standing at the center of the hall, Princess Celeria. She was stunning in an otherworldly way, tall and slender, her shimmering silver-blue skin reflecting the soft light of the chamber. Her long, flowing hair cascaded down her back like liquid metal, and a ceremonial robe covered her regal form. But it was her eyes, sharp, intelligent, and full of something unreadable, that held his gaze. And then she spoke. "I have chosen you as my make-human." Nathan blinked. For a long moment, his brain refused to process what she had just said. "I'm sorry." "What?" he asked, wondering if he had misheard. Celeria raised her chin slightly, as if expecting no argument. "I have chosen you." She looked at the council and then back at him. "You should be honored." Nathan had no idea what to say. He had been summoned to this alien world as part of a diplomatic mission, but no one had told him about this. One of the council members, an elderly Scifi with deep silver markings on his skin, cleared his throat. "Princess Celeria has made her selection. It is a rare honor for an outsider." Nathan frowned. "Yeah, I think there's been some kind of misunderstanding." Celeria tilted her head, her expression unreadable. "Misunderstanding? I mean, we don't even know each other." He gestured vaguely between them. "Humans don't just pick mates like that." A murmur spread through the council. Some of them looked displeased, others curious. Celeria folded her arms. "In Scifi culture, the strongest, most capable male is chosen as a mate. I have watched the records of your actions in battle, your survival skills, your mind. You have proven yourself worthy." Nathan rubbed his face. "Look, I appreciate the compliment, but humans have this thing called getting to know each other before making decisions like this." Celeria frowned. "I have studied your species, human. Your ways are slow and inefficient." She took a step forward. "But if you require proof of worthiness, then you will take the trials." Nathan's stomach dropped. "The what now?" The elderly council member spoke again. 3 trials meant to test strength, intelligence, and commitment. If you pass, you will be recognized as her rightful mate." Nathan's jaw tightened. "And if I don't?" Celeria gave him a cool look. "Then you are unworthy." This was insane. Absolutely insane. Nathan had spent his life traveling the galaxy, making first contact with alien species, surviving hostile environments. But this, getting forced into an alien engagement based on some ancient ritual. "Look, I don't want to offend anyone, but I never agreed to this." Celeria stared at him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then, to his surprise, something flickered in her gaze. Curiosity. "You refuse me?" Nathan sighed. "I'm saying I need time to think." The council exchanged glances. Finally, Celeria nodded. "Very well. You will have time." But somehow, Nathan knew, whether he liked it or not, he was already caught in something far bigger than himself. And there was no easy way out. Nathan Cole sat in his temporary quarters, staring at the smooth metallic walls of the Scifi palace. The air had a faint metallic scent, and the soft hum of alien technology filled the silence. He ran a hand through his short brown hair, letting out a deep sigh. "Trials? Seriously?" he muttered to himself. The moment he had stepped onto this planet, he had been caught in a whirlwind of alien traditions. Princess Celeria, an elegant and powerful ruler, had declared him as her mate, and now he had to prove himself in 3 trials, 1 testing strength, 1 testing intelligence, and 1 testing commitment. Nathan shook his head. This wasn't how humans did things. A soft chime echoed in the room, and the door slid open. Celeria stepped inside, her tall figure radiating authority. Her silver-blue skin shimmered under the dim lights, and her piercing violet eyes locked onto him. "You are troubled," she observed, tilting her head slightly. Nathan crossed his arms. "Yeah, no kidding. 1 minute I'm on a diplomatic mission. The next I'm in some kind of alien dating competition." Celeria blinked. "It is not a competition. It is a tradition." "Same thing," he muttered. Then, more seriously, he asked, "Why me?" "You barely know me." Celeria's gaze didn't waver. "I have observed your species from afar. I have studied your actions, your adaptability, your strength in battle. I chose you because you are unlike any Scifi male." Nathan let out a short laugh. "That's because I'm human." Celeria nodded. "Exactly. And if you are worthy, you will stand beside me as an equal." Nathan sighed. "And if I don't want to?" For a moment, something flickered in her eyes, a hint of uncertainty. But then she straightened. "Then you may leave once the trials are complete." Nathan narrowed his eyes. "So, I don't have a choice." Celeria hesitated, then gave a small nod. "Not entirely." He exhaled sharply. "Fine. What's the first trial?" Celeria's lips curved slightly. Not quite a smile, but close. "A test of strength. You will battle a Scifi warrior in the arena." Nathan's stomach tightened. Of course, it had to be combat. The arena of trials. The next morning, Nathan stood in the center of a massive arena. The sky above was a dark shade of violet, and the towering stands were filled with Scifi nobles and warriors, all waiting to see if the human could survive. Celeria stood on a raised platform, watching intently. She was dressed in her royal battle attire. Silver armor fitted to her form, a high collar accentuating her regal posture. A deep horn blared through the arena. A large armored Scifi warrior stepped forward. He was easily a foot taller than Nathan, with muscular arms and a thick exoskeleton that gleamed in the light. He carried a dual-bladed weapon, similar to a staff but with 2 glowing energy blades at either end. Nathan had nothing but a simple combat knife. "Great, just great." The warrior let out a low growl. "You are not worthy of our princess, human." Nathan rolled his shoulders. "Yeah, well, let's see about that." The warrior lunged. Nathan dodged at the last second, the energy blade slicing through the air where he had been standing. His reflexes were his best weapon. He wasn't as strong as the Scifi, but he was faster. The warrior swung again, but Nathan ducked and rolled beneath his attack. Using the momentum, he slashed at the warrior's side with his knife. Sparks flew as the blade scraped against the exoskeleton. Celeria's eyes widened slightly from her place on the platform. He's not fighting like a Scifi. He's using strategy. Nathan circled his opponent, analyzing weaknesses. The exoskeleton was strong, but the joints, the neck, under the arms, behind the knees, were vulnerable. The warrior roared in frustration and charged again. Nathan waited until the last second, then sidestepped and plunged his knife into the warrior's unprotected side. The crowd gasped. The warrior stumbled, glaring at him with fury. But Nathan didn't wait. He grabbed the fallen staff weapon and spun it in his hands. It was heavier than he expected, but he adjusted quickly. The warrior charged again. This time, Nathan met him head-on. He parried the attack, twisted his body, and slammed the blunt end of the staff into the warrior's chest. The impact sent the Scifi crashing to the ground. Silence filled the arena. Then, Celeria stepped forward and raised her hand. "The human is victorious." The crowd erupted in a mixture of shock and approval. Nathan, breathing heavily, wiped sweat from his forehead and looked up at Celeria. She was watching him differently now. Not just as a challenger, but as something more. After the trial, back in the palace, Nathan was led to a private chamber where Celeria was waiting. She stood with her hands clasped behind her back, her expression unreadable. "You fight well," she said. Nathan smirked. I survive well. For the first time, she let out a small, soft chuckle. Perhaps that is why I chose you. Nathan hesitated. He had expected her to be cold and calculating, but now she seemed intrigued. He sighed. All right, what's next? Celeria's violet eyes gleamed. The second trial, one of intelligence. Let us see if the human mind is as sharp as its body. Nathan exhaled. Great. This was far from over. Nathan sat in a large circular chamber with a strange energy humming in the air. The room was nothing like the arena where he had fought his first trial. Here, there were no weapons, no warriors, only silence. The walls shimmered with pulsating blue lights, forming ever-changing symbols that Nathan couldn't recognize. Celeria stood in front of him, her arms crossed as she observed him. Her violet eyes studied his face with a mix of curiosity and expectation. This is the trial of intelligence, she said. It will determine if your mind is strong enough to stand beside me. Nathan sighed. I fought a giant alien yesterday. Now I have to pass a test. Celeria gave a small nod. Strength alone is not enough. A ruler must possess a keen mind. Nathan leaned back in his chair. All right. So what's the challenge? Celeria gestured to the glowing walls. The Scifi knowledge trial. You must solve 3 puzzles before the time runs out. Nathan frowned. What happens if I fail? Celeria hesitated for a moment before answering. Then you will not be considered worthy. Nathan exhaled slowly. No pressure then. The first puzzle, the pattern of stars. A holographic screen materialized in front of him, displaying a set of shifting stars. Symbols flickered in between them, forming a complicated pattern. A deep voice echoed through the chamber. Find the missing sequence. Nathan stared at the stars. He quickly realized they weren't just random shapes. They were constellations. He studied the sequence, searching for the missing pattern. Think, Nathan. What do they expect me to do? Then it clicked. The Scifi system had a logical rotation pattern. If he followed the same pattern forward, he could predict what came next. He tapped the correct answer. The stars flickered, then rearranged into a completed constellation. A soft chime echoed in the room. Correct. Celeria's eyes narrowed slightly, impressed but silent. The second puzzle, the impossible code. The holographic screen changed. Now it displayed a series of alien glyphs, arranged in a confusing manner. The voice echoed again. Decipher the message. Nathan frowned. He had seen these symbols before. They were Scifi script, but they didn't form any words he recognized. He glanced at Celeria, but her face was unreadable. Nathan knew he didn't have time to learn an entire alien language, so he had to think differently. Look for patterns. Look for something familiar. His eyes scanned the symbols, searching for repeated characters, logical structures, or something resembling Earth languages. Then he saw it, the same 3 symbols repeating at regular intervals. A code. He recalled his training as a deep space explorer. Some languages followed a mathematical pattern. He tested a theory, rearranging the symbols like a cipher. Slowly, the message formed into readable text. Intelligence is the light that leads the strong. The hologram flickered again. Correct. Celeria's lips parted slightly in surprise. You broke the code. Nathan smirked. You sound shocked. Celeria tilted her head. Scifi males rely on memory implants to pass this test. You solved it without one. Nathan shrugged. Humans improvise. For the first time, she seemed genuinely impressed. The third puzzle, the test of judgment. The final challenge appeared on the screen. A map of a battlefield. 2 armies stood on opposite sides, one vastly outnumbering the other. The voice spoke. You are the commander. Choose your strategy. You must win, but with minimal loss. Nathan immediately saw the problem. The smaller army had no chance in direct combat. If he attacked head-on, they would lose. He tapped the screen, scanning the terrain. There was a narrow canyon nearby. An idea formed in his mind. All right, instead of fighting directly, I'll use the canyon to funnel the enemy. The smaller force can hold the choke point, while a second group flanks them from behind. He input the strategy. The battlefield simulation played out. The smaller force used the terrain to their advantage, forcing the enemy into a trap. Victory. The screen turned black. Correct. Nathan exhaled. He had passed. Celeria's realization. Celeria stepped forward, studying him with newfound interest. You think differently from us. Nathan stretched his arms. Yeah, we humans like to solve things in creative ways. Celeria hesitated for a moment before speaking. Most Zeri males take days to prepare for these tests. You completed them in moments. Nathan grinned. What can I say? Humans are fast learners. Celeria's gaze lingered on him longer than before. For the first time, her confidence wavered, not because she doubted herself, but because she was seeing something unexpected. Nathan wasn't just passing the trials. He was changing the way she saw humans. She straightened. The second trial is complete. Only one remains. Nathan raised an eyebrow. Let me guess, this one's about commitment. Celeria nodded. Yes, and it will be the most difficult of all. Nathan sighed. Of course it will. But as he looked at Celeria, he noticed something different in her expression. It wasn't just duty anymore. There was curiosity, respect, maybe even something deeper. And that realization made the next trial even more dangerous. Nathan Cole stood in the Grand Hall once again, facing Princess Celeria and the Zeri High Council. The air was thick with tension, and the golden lights along the chamber walls cast long shadows. The first two trials had tested his strength and intelligence, but now came the final challenge, the trial of commitment. Celeria stood tall, her silver-blue skin gleaming under the chamber's glow. Her violet eyes were fixed on him, but there was something different in her gaze today. She wasn't just testing him anymore. She was trying to understand him. The High Council's elder stepped forward, his deep voice echoing in the hall. Human, the final trial will determine if you are truly worthy to stand beside our princess. A mate must not only be strong and intelligent, but also loyal. He must be willing to sacrifice for the one he is bonded to. Nathan crossed his arms. All right, let's hear it. What's the challenge? The elder's gaze hardened. You must prove your loyalty by leaving everything behind and becoming one of us. Nathan's breath caught. Wait, what? Celeria blinked, as if surprised by the trial herself. You are asking him to abandon his world. The elder nodded. If he is to be your mate, he must dedicate himself fully. He must give up his human life, his people, his home, his past. Nathan's stomach tightened. He had faced deadly battles, cracked alien puzzles, and outsmarted warriors. But this was different. The weight of the choice. Nathan looked at Celeria, searching her face for any reaction. Did she agree with this? Did she expect him to say yes? For the first time, the princess hesitated. Nathan exhaled sharply. So let me get this straight. If I want to prove my commitment, I have to give up my entire identity. My life as a human. The elder's expression remained stern. A Zeri mate must be fully dedicated. Nathan clenched his jaw. This wasn't just about proving loyalty. It was about control. They wanted him to surrender everything. His thoughts raced. He had fought in wars, traveled to distant stars, seen wonders beyond imagination. But he had always been human. Earth was his home. His people were his people. Celeria finally spoke, her voice quieter than usual. It is the way of our people. Nathan turned to her. And what do you think? She hesitated again, something shifting in her expression. For the first time, she wasn't so sure. Nathan exhaled. He had come to respect Celeria, even admire her. But he couldn't just throw away everything that made him who he was. His voice was firm. Then I fail your trial. Gasps filled the chamber. The council members whispered amongst themselves, shocked by his words. No one had ever refused the final trial before. Celeria's eyes widened slightly. You refuse? Nathan nodded. If loyalty means giving up everything that makes me human, then I won't do it. I don't believe love, or commitment, works that way. The elder's face darkened. Then you are unworthy. Guards stepped forward, their weapons raised. But before they could act, Celeria raised her hand. Wait. Asterisk asterisk. The guards froze. She turned to Nathan, something unreadable in her gaze. Then she looked at the council. What if our traditions are wrong? The council members exchanged confused glances. Princess, one of them began, but Celeria cut him off. We have followed these customs for generations, yet the human has already proved his strength and intelligence. His mind works differently. His heart values choice. Is this not worth considering? The elder frowned. Are you questioning our laws? Celeria took a step forward, her voice strong. I am questioning whether we must change. Silence filled the chamber. Nathan watched as Celeria turned back to him. For the first time, she wasn't speaking as a princess bound by tradition. She was speaking as someone making a choice of her own. You should not have to give up who you are, she said softly. Nathan's heart pounded. She understood. The great defiance. The elder's voice was cold. Then this union cannot be. Celeria's violet eyes blazed. I choose him. The council erupted in murmurs. Some looked outraged, others uncertain. Nathan blinked. Wait, just like that. Celeria nodded, her voice clear. The trials exist to determine if someone is worthy. But what if worthiness is not just about proving oneself, but about mutual respect? Nathan smirked. Now you're starting to sound human. The elder's expression was unreadable. If you defy tradition, you risk your claim to the throne. Celeria's jaw tightened. Then I will risk it. A ripple of shock spread through the council. The guards hesitated, uncertain of their orders. Nathan looked at Celeria, his respect for her deepening. She wasn't just following orders. She was choosing to stand by him, not because of some ancient trial, but because she wanted to. Celeria turned back to the council. Perhaps it is time we evolve. And perhaps, she glanced at Nathan, a human is the one to show us how. The elder remained silent for a long moment. Then, at last, he sighed. If you are willing to stand by this human, then so be it. Nathan exhaled. Had they actually won? Celeria turned to him, and for the first time she smiled. Not as a princess choosing a mate, but as someone making her own choice. Nathan grinned. So, does this mean I passed? Celeria's gaze softened. It means we both did. And for the first time, the trials were no longer about proving worth. They were about something far greater, change. Nathan Cole leaned against the balcony railing of the Scifi palace, staring out at the alien city below. Towering spires of shimmering metal stretched toward the violet sky, their surfaces glowing softly in the twilight. Airships glided silently through the air, and beneath them, the streets bustled with Scifi civilians going about their lives. But Nathan's mind wasn't on the view. He had just changed an entire empire's tradition. Only hours ago, Princess Celeria had defied the High Council by rejecting the final trial's demand that he abandon his human identity. Instead of forcing him to change, she had chosen him as he was. It was the first time a Scifi royal had ever questioned their customs. Nathan ran a hand through his short brown hair. What the hell did I get myself into? The sound of soft footsteps behind him made him turn. Celeria stood there, her silver-blue skin glowing under the pale moonlight. She wore a simple, flowing robe instead of her usual battle armor, and for the first time, she looked at ease. Are you troubled? She asked. Nathan sighed. More like processing everything. Your people weren't exactly happy about what you did. Celeria stepped beside him, gazing at the city below. Change is never easy. The High Council will resist it. but I do not regret my decision." Nathan looked at her, raising an eyebrow. "You sure? You just risked your entire throne for me." She turned to face him fully. "I risked my throne for the right to choose my own future." For a moment, neither spoke. The tension between them had shifted, no longer about the trials or proving worthiness. Now it was something real, something personal. But before Nathan could say anything, a loud explosion shook the palace. The attack. Nathan and Celeria spun toward the source of the blast. Down below, near the palace gates, thick black smoke billowed into the sky. Screams echoed through the city as armed figures in dark armor swarmed into the courtyard. Celeria's eyes narrowed. This is an attack. Nathan pulled his sidearm from his holster. "No kidding. Any idea who they are?" Before she could answer, a Scifi warrior rushed toward them. His armor bore the mark of the royal guard, but his expression was tense. "Princess, the High Council has betrayed you. They have ordered your capture." Celeria's fists clenched. So, they fear change this much. Nathan let out a frustrated breath. Of course. Some old guys don't like their traditions being questioned, so they're sending an army to fix the problem. The palace trembled as more explosions rocked the walls. The council's loyalists had sent heavily armed forces to take back control. Celeria turned to Nathan. "We must leave. Now." Nathan didn't need to be told twice. The escape. Celeria led him through a series of hidden corridors behind the palace chambers. The narrow passageways were dark, the air thick with dust and age-old stone. "How do you know about these tunnels?" Nathan asked as they moved quickly. "My mother showed them to me when I was a child. They were built as escape routes in times of war." Nathan let out a dry chuckle. "Guess we're using them for the right reason, then." As they turned a corner, 2 enemy soldiers appeared at the tunnel exit, blocking their way. Nathan didn't hesitate. With precise aim, he fired 2 quick shots, hitting one soldier in the shoulder and forcing the other to duck. Celeria leaped forward, moving with the grace of a warrior, and struck the second soldier with a swift blow to the neck. They collapsed. Nathan exhaled. "Remind me never to fight you." Celeria gave him a small smirk. Wise decision. They pushed forward, emerging from the tunnels into a dense forest beyond the palace walls. The sounds of battle still raged in the distance, but for now, they had a head start. They were fugitives in Celeria's own empire. The new reality. They stopped near a small stream, catching their breath. Nathan leaned against a tree, looking at Celeria. "So, what now?" She wiped a streak of dirt from her cheek. "We cannot return to the palace. Not yet. The High Council sees us as a threat to their power." Nathan exhaled. "Great. We went from potential rulers to fugitives in one day." Celeria looked at him seriously. "If you regret your decision to stay, I will understand." Nathan gave her a sideways look. "Regret? Princess, I just survived an arena fight, cracked an alien code, and now escaped a coup. This is probably the most exciting thing that's ever happened to me." She stared at him for a moment before smiling. A real, genuine smile. "You are an unusual human, Nathan Cole." Nathan grinned. "Yeah, I get that a lot." But deep down, he knew this wasn't over. The High Council wouldn't stop until Celeria was under their control again. And now he wasn't just caught in this fight. He was choosing to fight for her freedom, for their future, and maybe for something even more. Nathan Cole and Princess Celeria sat by the edge of a small, glowing stream in the heart of the Scifi forest. The violet sky above them shimmered faintly, casting a soft light over the strange, alien landscape. It had been hours since they escaped the palace, and now they were fugitives, hunted by the High Council's forces. Nathan rubbed the back of his neck, still processing everything. One moment, he was proving himself in the Scifi trials, and the next, he was on the run with an alien princess. Celeria sat beside him, her silver-blue skin illuminated by the soft glow of the water. She seemed deep in thought, her violet eyes fixed on the horizon. "You should not have to run because of me." Her voice was quieter than usual. Nathan chuckled dryly. "You say that like I had a choice." She turned to look at him, her gaze serious. "You did. You could have left. You could have walked away." Nathan met her eyes. "Yeah, but I didn't." For a moment, neither spoke. They both knew what this meant. Nathan had chosen to stand by her, not because he was forced to, but because he wanted to. A new plan. Siluria finally broke the silence. "We cannot run forever. The High Council will send more soldiers, and they will not stop until they regain control." Nathan sighed. "So what's the plan?" "We take them all on ourselves." Siluria actually considered it for a moment before shaking her head. "No, we do not need to fight them head-on." She turned toward the distant mountains. "There is another way. We can rally support from those who believe in change. There are Scifi who disagree with the council, but fear speaking out." Nathan raised an eyebrow. "And you think they'll follow you?" Siluria met his gaze. "I know they will." Nathan nodded slowly. "All right. So where do we start?" Siluria stood up, her expression determined. "With my mother." Nathan blinked. "Wait, your mother's still alive." Siluria nodded. "She was forced into exile after the council took power. But she still holds influence among our people. If we can reach her, we may have a chance." Nathan let out a breath. "All right then. Let's go find your mom." Journey through the wildlands. Their journey took them deep into the Scifi wildlands, a vast region untouched by the Empire's rule. The terrain was rough, filled with towering crystal-like trees and strange creatures that watched them from the shadows. Nathan stayed alert, his weapon ready. "I gotta say, your homeworld is beautiful, in a might-kill-you kind of way." Siluria gave him a small smile. "You are the first human to set foot here." Nathan smirked. "Yeah, I'll add it to my list of accomplishments." They traveled for hours, moving cautiously through the dense forest. Every now and then, Siluria would stop, scanning the surroundings with a sharp gaze. "Something wrong?" Nathan asked. She hesitated before answering. "We are being followed." Nathan tensed. "Council soldiers." Siluria shook her head. "No, something worse." Before Nathan could ask what she meant, a low growl echoed from the shadows. "The beasts of the forest." From the darkness, 3 massive creatures emerged. They resembled feline predators, but their bodies were covered in shimmering scales, and their glowing yellow eyes locked onto their prey. Nathan and Siluria. Nathan tightened his grip on his weapon. "I'm guessing talking isn't an option." Siluria slowly drew her blade. "Not with these creatures." One of the beasts lunged, claws outstretched. Nathan barely dodged in time, rolling across the ground and firing a shot at the creature's side. The impact sent it stumbling back, but it didn't go down. Siluria moved like lightning, dodging another attack and slashing her blade across a beast's leg. The creature roared in pain, but it wasn't down yet. Nathan fired another shot, this time hitting one of the creatures in the chest. It collapsed with a final snarl. Siluria finished off the last one with a precise strike to its neck. As the creatures fell silent, Nathan let out a heavy breath. "Please tell me your mom doesn't live somewhere worse than this." Siluria gave a small laugh. "Come, we are close." Reunion with the exiled queen. After hours of travel, they finally reached a hidden sanctuary deep within the mountains. The entrance was guarded by Scifi warriors wearing different armor, not the council's soldiers, but those loyal to the exiled queen. As they stepped inside, Nathan took in the sight before him. A massive underground city stretched out beneath them, glowing with soft blue lights. Hundreds of Scifi moved through the streets, and at the very center, a large palace stood. Siluria's expression softened as she looked at the palace. "She is here." Nathan followed her as they approached the grand entrance. The guards stepped aside, allowing them through. Inside, an older Zieri woman sat upon a throne. Her silver-blue skin bore markings of wisdom and strength, and her violet eyes, so much like Celeria's, widened in surprise at the sight of her daughter. Celeria. Her voice was filled with emotion. Celeria stepped forward. Mother. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then the exiled queen rose and embraced her daughter. Nathan stood back, watching the reunion. He had no idea what the future held, but one thing was certain. This fight wasn't over. If they wanted to defeat the High Council, they would need an army. And this was just the beginning. Nathan Cole stood at the balcony of the hidden sanctuary, looking over the vast underground city. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. A civilization built in exile, a kingdom waiting in the shadows. The glow of the blue crystal towers reflected off the metallic structures, and hundreds of Zieri rebels moved through the streets, preparing for what was coming, the battle to reclaim the throne. Behind him, Princess Celeria and her mother, the exiled queen, spoke in hushed voices. The reunion had been emotional, but there was little time to celebrate. The High Council had betrayed Celeria, and now they were tightening their grip on the Empire. If they didn't act soon, the Council would wipe out anyone who opposed them. Nathan turned back toward the two women, crossing his arms. So what's the plan? Celeria's mother, the former queen, looked at him with sharp violet eyes. The people will rise if Celeria leads them, but they need to see her take action. Celeria nodded, her expression determined. We strike the palace before the council can prepare. If we reclaim the throne, we break their power for good. Nathan smirked. I like it. Quick, direct, and risky. Celeria gave him a sideways glance. Would you have it any other way? Nathan chuckled. Not really. The queen stepped forward. You have already proven yourself, human. Will you fight for her? Nathan met Celeria's gaze. He had started this journey as an outsider, a human caught in an alien tradition. But now, things were different. He wasn't here because of a trial anymore. He was here because he chose to be. I'm with her until the end. Celeria's expression softened for just a moment, but then she turned to the warriors surrounding them. Then let's take back our world. The battle for the throne. The plan was simple. Attack the palace from two sides. Celeria would lead the main force through the front gates, while Nathan and a smaller unit would sneak through the tunnels beneath the city and disable the palace's defenses. As Nathan and his team moved through the dark passageways, he tightened his grip on his weapon. All right, boys, let's make some noise. They emerged into the palace's lower levels, taking out guard patrols one by one. Nathan moved quickly, setting explosives along the energy shield generators that protected the council chambers. Once the charges were set, he tapped his communicator. Celeria, you're clear. Up above, the battle had already begun. Celeria led her forces through the main gates, her silver-blue armor gleaming in the firelight. She moved like a warrior born for battle, striking down enemy soldiers with swift, precise attacks. The people of the city, inspired by her defiance, began to rise against the council's forces. The empire was no longer under the council's rule. It was hers. The final confrontation. Nathan reached the throne room, where the last of the council's elite warriors stood in a defensive line. The High Elder sat on the throne, his face filled with anger. You dare bring a human into our sacred halls? He spat. Celeria entered behind Nathan, her sword still in hand. I dare to reclaim what is mine. The High Elder sneered. You think this human has made you stronger. He has made you weak. Nathan sighed. You guys really don't like change, do you? The Elder motioned to his warriors. Kill them. The final fight was brutal. Nathan and Celeria fought side by side, taking down the elite guards in a deadly dance of blades and bullets. Finally, only the High Elder remained. He stumbled backward as Celeria pointed her sword at him. Your rule ends today. For the first time, The elder looked afraid. Without tradition, we are nothing, he hissed. Celeria's voice was calm, firm. Without choice, we are slaves. She turned away, leaving him to be taken by her warriors. The High Council had fallen. The Empire belonged to its people once more. A new beginning. Nathan stood beside Celeria as she took the throne. The people cheered her name, celebrating the return of their rightful ruler. She turned to him, her violet eyes filled with something deeper than gratitude. You fought for me when you didn't have to. Nathan smirked. That's what partners do. Celeria hesitated for a moment. Then, with a rare smile, she extended her hand. Then stand beside me, not as my mate, not as my warrior, but as my equal. Nathan looked at her hand, then took it. You got yourself a deal, princess. And as the sun rose over the Zairi Empire, Nathan realized something. This wasn't just her victory. It was theirs.